Hi, I'm Max or Chris Baum, as known on Wikidata, and I'm probably one of the worst persons to ask about this project because I've been a bit inactive in the last few months, but I was the only one that had time, so you're going to have to bear with me. There are a lot more active members of this project that are amazing in all of their work that they have put into it, and I'm only reporting on their amazing ideas and work, and have only contributed a small part in this. The main question maybe on anybody's mind at the start is what are Stolpersteine? That's a memorial project focusing on victims of the NS dictatorship, started by Gunter Demming, the man you see in this photo here, where he actually is in the process of installing some Stolpersteine in the road itself. They are like 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter cubes, mostly made of concrete, but on the top there's this little brass plate with an inscription on it. And the inscription normally commemorates like a person and gives like very basic biographical details depending on how much about the person is known. There are some more intricate ones, but the basic ones are always date of birth, date of death, and a reason for the disappearance. And they are most of them, like as everything with Stolperstein, it always only applies to most of them. They are installed in front of the last freely chosen residence of the corresponding person. So it's normally not a thing that you find inside of concentration camps themselves. There are other Stolperstein features for that, but most of the normal ones you find laying around in cities are in front of the last freely chosen residence of the person in question. They are extremely widespread. There is said to be around 100,000 in Europe right now. Most of them are heavily concentrated in Germany. Many of these countries you see on the map have like a few installed in maybe like only the capital and one or two smaller cities. And it's been called the largest decentralized memorial project, but of course that depends on your definition of this. And since it has been so long ongoing and since 1992, there has been a lot of work with the different Wikipedia groups over the years. There has been very early projects in the German Wikipedia, like around the 2010s, that were very active, that started to create list articles. I haven't put this on the slides, but there were huge debates back in the day around is this relevant, is this inclusion worthy, and huge fights, and the inclusion has won out in this case. So they were allowed to create all of these lists for different cities and have even more details than was normally applied to different kinds of lists. Like in this example here on the left, you can see there's like a whole biography written inside this table, which is not a rare occurrence. Like, of course, not every Stolperstein has this much biography, and it really depends on the author of the text. But there's a lot of them with this much detail, and it's really worthwhile your time if you ever want to check out these lists. Of course, they are all in German, this detailed. Like most of the other languages are not as expressive and have not that much information. One of the big criticisms at the time was, of course, that this is sometimes original research, of course, mostly backed up by sources, but sometimes not. But in the case of these Stolperstein lists, it has been very successful, and there's been a lot of activity around expanding the knowledge around these people. And there's a list of lists, even like if you go on the article where I took this picture from, there's a list of cities in Europe that is completely bonkers and goes on for ages. Like the list of lists is endless, and the lists themselves are endless too. Like the one from Munich, which I took this one from, is completely unreadable and goes on for miles. So it's a very, very highly detailed project. And the problem with these kinds of lists, of course, as I have already mentioned, is that they are pretty long and hard and tedious to work with, even for reading. It's not always quite the nicest experience, like on a desktop machine, which was the medium of the time these lists were laid out and were designed. The reading is not pleasant on mobile devices. It is not accustomed to any kind of dynamic screens or something like that. So it has reduced usability in different kinds of modes. They are heavily non-multilingual, like most of them, of course, are in German. There are some other languages that are also very active, but of course, most of this is focused in the German areas, and there are really no concrete style guides that are adhered to. Like there is a style guide for what kind of should go into a list, but not every list implements this, and the different styling and the templates used, or even if there are templates that are used, depends completely on the main author of this particular list, which is mostly like a person from the region or like an activist that is going around places to collect these kind of memorials. And yeah, of course, for our audience here, the main gripe one could have with these lists is that they are not machine readable and not reusable in any real sense. So of course, the main idea would be, let's just do it in Wikidata, get it over with, and that's the perfect database for these kinds of endeavors. Let's just do it. And of course, the main idea would be, let's just import the main Stolperstein database from like the art project or whatever. Let's scrape it, dump it, do it correctly and stuff, and upload it to Wikidata. That doesn't exist. There is no such database of any kind. It's an art project from 1992. I think they have announced that they are starting to create like a project-wide database. There has been many local projects, like some initiatives on a local level that have created this, or like different interest groups in different countries have taken up the role of at least trying to collect where Stolperstein memorials are laid out and whatever is happening. But it's not a central effort, and like, even if there are national databases, which there are none that really claim the title, I'd say. Of course, it's a bit opinionated. Are there any kinds of databases that could be imported? I have stricken this through just for the joke, but there are, of course, some smaller ones that are quite useful. But in the end, it's a completely incoherent and unusable dump of data, and I'm shivering when I say this, but the Wikipedia lists are by far the most complete and accurate account of the existence of these Stolperstein memorials in most of the world by far, which is of course quite like a bit of a bad news, good news situation, because they are of course very hard to really get a grasp on and to even check or automatically read or import. But that seems to be like the only road left to us in this case, and that was the reason to create this effort called Stolperstein Goes Wikidata, which was a kind of continuance of the, sadly with COVID a bit stopped program of WikiProjekt Stolperstein on Wikidata, and of course a continuance of the a bit less active German WikiProjekt Stolpersteine projects, which have also sadly been not that active in the last few years. And so the idea of Stolperstein Goes Wikidata is to be like a integrative effort to combine all of the different aspects of data that could be relevant in the case of Stolpersteine, for example, images and categories on commons. There's also an idea to create like different categories for the people that are referenced by the Stolperstein and the Stolperstein itself and the environment of the Stolperstein, to have like real separation of concerns. Then, of course, on Wikidata, the main goal is to create items for Stolpersteine and the victims that are mentioned on those memorials. And of course, a effort on Openstreetmap to create like the different points on the map that all, of course, then should link back to Wikidata at some point. And of course, a far future wish to import all of this collective knowledge back to Wikipedia, where people can actually consume and read it. And one of the first problems that we ran into as we tried to get it all rolling was multiple modeling problems that arise with these kinds of artistic endeavors, because they are not ever that easy to map out, as most of the people in this room have probably had experience with themselves. There's not one type of Stolperstein, there are multiples. The Stolpersteine are not definitely permanent. Some of them have been removed, some of them have been vandalized and destroyed, some of them have been replaced or moved around the map, and not all of them are part of this overarching Stolperstein project by Deming. So there are like local organizations that have engaged in placing them down, and it's all, of course, as the world is really messy. And here's an example of like Stolpersteine that have been wall mounted because some cities don't want them in the street. Of course, I think I've forgotten to mention that Stolperstein is like as a German word, symbolizes like a protruding stone in the street that you could stumble over, like a roadblock that should remind you of the person that has lived there, like an artwork that you need to notice because it's right in front of you, even if you're staring on the floor. But there are some that are mounted on the wall because the city doesn't want them there on the floor. There are some that are not really Stolpersteine, but are called Kopfsteine, which mostly are in reference to groups of victims. Like in this case, this is the asozialen Stolperstein in a city I have forgotten about. Yeah, but it's referencing a whole group of victims and not one particular one. And this one, for example, is a Stolperschwelle, which is also something completely different. These are the ones that are sometimes placed at places that have forced people to work in this case, or other kinds of gruesome things. Like these are the ones that are mostly about an event kind of type and not a person. And there's also, I've not put this on the slides, but there's also multiple Stolpersteine per person, because people have lived in different cities before they were gruesomely murdered in most cases. And this is also something that our initial data model had to take in account over a long period of time. It has been a labor of love. We have created this entity schema. Exactly, it's in Frankfurt am Main. I could have, definitely read that better. There's this very, very great entity schema that I would like to encourage everyone to check out. There's been a labor of love, mostly by Nortex. And is a great feature to check the completeness of most Stolperstein items. I will not go through every rung here because I'm already running out of time, but it's great and very, I think, pretty much complete. As you can see, we have made multiple features optional because, of course, there are always exceptions to the exception. This is the current project progress. As you can see, we started the count in 2024. There have been some mass imports before that, but this is like the project focus area, and there has been a lot of success, I'd say, in creating at least Stolpersteine in Germany. We have doubled to at least 45,000. And there's also, if you go on the project page, there's multiple better queries than that. It's just for showing off. Here's one nice benefit that I wanted to show off, a kind of visualization that wasn't possible with the kinds of lists on Wikipedia. This is a timeline of a Stolperstein what's it called? Inception, like the act of laying them down in a particular German city that happened over multiple years, for example. Like they are not, like most of the time they are laid down at multiple points in time, depending on what local group or what family in the area wants them to be there. So that's quite interesting and a very nice view. And of course, to round this out with future wishes, I think I've mentioned this to maybe multiple people in Rune. I hope I'm not overstretching my annoyedness, but it would be very nice, of course, to have in the end this back on Wikipedia. There would need to be some kind of more user-friendly for the native Wikipedia editors way to interact with the lists. And of course, we have the problem that there's a lot of Stolperstein information captured in these biographical texts that would need to be encoded more closely in Wikidata. It would, of course, be nice to have like some abstract Wikipedia mechanism that could create these biographies out of thin air, but that's probably a bit more in the future. And another focus for me, at least as a small cog in this project machine, would be to have a way to introduce this to local museums that could have like a very low-key way of engaging the public in helping to improve the relevant Stolperstein items on different fronts, like for example, trying to parse texts of Stolperstein images, adding particular statements by running the text through like an algorithm and trying to extract like the date of birth from the photo, and having like multiple checks and balances to improve the general data quality. Yeah, and this is of course far in the future. And now I thank you for your attention. And there are two links here, because the one on the left is in the German language WikiProjekt Stolperstein goes Wikidata, and on the right there's the Wikidata one, where you can also engage. And I would be very glad for you to join us in our small fun effort over there. Feel free to click there and engage. There's a lot of them left. Like if you have seen 40,000 now in Wikidata, if you count the numbers from the beginning, there's around half still to go. So there's a lot of work to be done. And of course, like the images and the people themselves.
Cool. Thank you, Max. Thank you for teaching me a little more about my adopted homeland. Does anyone have any questions for Max about Stolpersteine? Any word I learned as well?
I think there's one from Shisma.
Please, take it away.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. Okay, so I discovered a few Stolpersteine on this service called WikiShootMe, which I'm using from time to time, like if I'm bored in somewhere. And I discovered, or I believe I've discovered, that some Stolpersteine may not actually exist that are on Wikidata.
Oh,
is that possible?
That could be. I mean, if you have any examples that you could shoot our way, I would be very glad. It could also be like a geographical problem, because they are of course very hard to locate small pieces on the ground. So maybe they are around the corner from where they're actually located on the map. So definitely a possibility. If you have any indications of those, would be nice to know. Like some have removed, but it's very rare. Like it probably is an error, I guess, if you see some that are not there.
In my case, there were actually like 2 Stolpersteine for the same person in Wikidata at 2 different addresses.
Yeah, that's normal. Yeah. Like that can happen if the person has lived in 2 different locations, and both cities have acted to place down these Stolpersteine in front of the locations. That does happen. It's not that often, but there are multiple persons that have multiple Stolpersteine attached to them.
Okay, thank you.
And A. Schmidt has asked, how about authority control with Stolpersteine?
Yeah, I mean, would be cool to have, but as I said, there are not really that many great real databases that you could look to say let's use them for authority control. I think the best authority at the moment is probably Wikidata for like a global perspective. Yeah. It's just of course they're still developing like their own database, and maybe as soon as that goes online and is filled, then maybe that could be the authority control in this case.